Have you ever played a game so much that you feel like you've run out of replay value? Some people choose to come up with additional challenges, such as beating a game as fast as possible, scoring as many points as possible, or pushing a multiplayer game to its competitive limit. Ocarina of Time has no scoring system. It's not multiplayer. It is a single-player journey through an epic world. So, how fast can someone beat it? My name is Cosmo Wright, and this is my speedrun of The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time in 18 minutes and 10 seconds. In 2006, I started frequenting the Speed Demos Archive forums, a place where people interested in speedrunning would gather and discuss strategy. The single largest game thread on SDA belonged to Ocarina of Time. Discussion mainly revolved around experimenting with the game. In fact, very few speedruns were actually completed back then. It felt more like we were doing science than anything else. This was spurred on by a user going by the name of Kazooie, posting videos of some clever jumps that weren't thought to be possible before. These jumps allowed us to access certain areas in the game sooner than intended. We were able to do things, such as obtain the hover boots early, and get to the Spirit Temple right after Deku Tree. A large amount of cutscene skips, out-of-bounds glitches, and shenanigans were found in this rich period of discovery, the most significant of which was a way of writing values to a certain range of memory that represented Link's inventory. This led to obtaining the Shadow and Spirit medallions early, which is the trigger in the game for the Light Arrow cutscene, ultimately leading to the completion of the game without any adult dungeons. In March 2008, through a group effort and a lot of man-hours, the Door of Time was finally skipped, using a tricky side-hop jump slash, meaning we could combine this with the memory manipulation glitch and beat the game completing 0 dungeons. The route would grab a bottle as Child Link, go immediately to Adult Link, then go around the overworld manipulating Link's inventory until we had the medallions, at which point we could obtain the light arrows and finish the game. There were a surprising number of route variations involving the method used to begin the memory manipulation glitch. The Ganondorf fight was a true bottleneck. We could access Ganon's castle, but Ganondorf was unable to be defeated without magic and light arrows. Without a way to skip or defeat Ganondorf, this was about as fast as we could make the route. Things were settling down. However, in February 2012, a user named ChristianF23 found a way to skip many of the post-dungeon cutscenes. If performed in the Fire Temple, it not only skipped the cutscene, but warped Link into the Forest Temple. The entire Ocarina of Time community was astonished, and the Zelda scientists went to work. What we found broke the game. Upon the completion of the Deku Tree, Dodongo's Cavern, or Fire Temple under certain circumstances, we were able to warp Link to many unusual locations, such as a beta Jabu cutscene, the title screen, and the end credits. Amongst all the craziness that was going on, a clever user by the name of RobDog was poring over the game's internal entrance list, and had a startling realization. The door to Deku Tree basement from Goma's room on the internal entrance list was adjacent to part of the Castle Clap's interior. Nobody had thought of this before, because the stone slab that blocks the way made it not obvious there was another option there. Sockfolder tested RobDog's theory, and it worked. For the first time in history, Ocarina of Time could be completed as Child Link alone. This was faster than a credits warp. There was an explosion of activity. Many people did many speedruns trying to optimize this new route, including myself. The speedrun you are watching is my greatest work yet, and is the result of another 2 years of optimization. This run was done on the official Chinese release of the game. I chose this version because of faster text and less lag. The first thing you may notice is that I am walking backwards. Backwalking is very quick, but because Link has to take the time to turn around, it is mostly useful for longer distances in which I need to travel in a straight line. Side-hopping is, in theory, the fastest form of basic movement, but it needs precise angles on the control stick along with frame-perfect timing to really save time side-hopping everywhere. I collect 5 rupees from the stepping stones and another 5 inside the shop so I can buy a Deku Stick. My goal, once I've obtained my Deku Stick, is to escape the forest through the Zora's River warp in the Lost Woods. This warp is only intended to be accessed once I've collected the Silver Scale, but because of the way the polygons are lined up, I can jump slash directly into the acute angle and get clipped through the wall, enabling me to leave the forest without beating the Deku Tree. This is actually one of many forest escape methods, and is the most useful one because it is fast and allows me to bypass the cutscene in which Saria gives Link the Fairy Ocarina. Once in the Lost Woods, I time my first roll on a certain frame and lock the angle to set up for later. Making my way to the small pond, I do another exact roll to adjust my angle further. From there, I use the corner to line up my position and do the side hop jump slash to perfectly clip through the wall and make my exit. To figure out those exact angles for the forced escape, I had to use memory hacking software to read Link's exact facing direction and XYZ position, then gather a lot of data to find the absolute ranges in which a side hop jump slash actually goes through the wall, and from there come up with a way to get Link into that range quickly. Once in Zora's River, I dodge the Octorok shot and proceed down the river, mashing B to swim faster. I want to get many rupees in the water so I can buy a Deku Shield and more Deku Sticks later on. From this upcoming ledge that I can grab, if my angle is good, I can do a side hop and obtain a red rupee, which is the fastest way to fill my wallet. I swim the rest of the way down, ending with 55 rupees. At the bottom here, I actually jump slash into the loading zone because it sets Link's speed to 0 in the next area, which saves me a roll. By jump slashing this wall in Hyrule Field, I get a lot of backward speed in the water. If I hold the control stick slightly off-center, I can keep this backward speed on the land, using the Z button to either lock the angle or rotate Link. During this slide, Link is considered busy so that Keiporage Bora's annoying text is skipped en route to Kakariko. The entire purpose of leaving Kokiri Forest and heading to Kakariko is to get a bottle, as I need one later on in the speedrun. There are several bottles in Ocarina of Time, but the Kakariko bottle is the fastest, because the Lon Lon Ranch bottle requires waking up Talon at Hyrule Castle. This means obtaining the weird egg and waiting a full day-night cycle. This is too out of the way. Another option would be the Lake Hylia bottle, however that has its own set of issues. That bottle seemingly cannot be collected unless Link is in the diving animation, which means the silver or golden scale is necessary. Finally, even if I do get that bottle, it must be emptied first by watching King Zora slowly scoot over. The Big Po bottle is of course not an option. This means the Kakariko bottle is by far the best choice. To obtain this bottle, I need to collect every Cucco and bring them to the pen. All the Cuccos start in the same position, but their normal behavior is governed by the game's internal random number generator, which cannot be manipulated in a real-time speedrun. Essentially, I need good luck at this section in order to save time, and executing optimal gameplay here is very difficult due to the wide variety of situations I find myself in. Cuccos also have certain behavior that is not governed by the RNG, but rather is based on Link's position. Once a Cucco is thrown, it will jump in place for a while, and then start running in a line away from Link. In this way, I have some control over the Cuccos, and I can try to move in ways that gather them more effectively. One interesting part of Cucco collecting is that I have limited movement options when I'm holding a Cucco. Carrying one prevents me from rolling or side hopping, though backwalking is still possible. This makes backwalking across slightly shorter distances worth the time it takes to turn around. During this last part here, all the Cuccos end up right in my arms, and I'm quickly able to get them in the pen and collect my bottle. Once I have the bottle, I have one more thing to do. I need to go pick up a stray rock and collect the bugs found under it. The bugs will be useful for a bug later on. I save and reset the game. This takes me back to Link's house in the forest, which is faster than traveling back across Hyrule Field. This reset speed is rather slow because I'm on the Chinese version. Though the Chinese version has slow resets, it makes up for it in lag and text length. I actually spent many hours timing the fastest versions of the game to figure out which was optimal. Back in Link's house, the camera angle is actually different than the beginning of the game, which makes leaving slightly more challenging. The backflip off Link's balcony is actually quite difficult because the angle I need on the control stick is in between up and upright. If I was very accurate, my backwalk will get to the fence much faster and in a better position. I jump the stepping stones one more time for an extra 5 rupees totaling 60. I buy 2 Deku Sticks and the Deku Shield. I buy the sticks first because it is faster due to the Deku Shield explanation text taking me out of the shop menu. Here's the Mido skip, one of the most difficult skips used in this run. I have to pause to equip the shield anyway, so I use that pause mid-side hop to angle my control stick perfectly for the next series of inputs. Unfortunately, I paused 1 frame early and had to attempt to unpause and repause the game another frame forward, which took 2 attempts. This was the most significant mistake made in the speedrun. The Mido skip itself is hard because the end result of Mido skip is based on a number of variables that create a tree of possible outcomes. These outcomes were investigated in depth between myself and Ocarina of Time tool-assisted speedrunner Bluebyblah, who initially found the setup to skip Mido. The Mito skip is also notable because after Bloob discovered it could be done without a final jump slash, this meant it was possible to do without the Kokiri sword. Graviton did a rough timing of the two routes, which had a good promise that we were on track for another breakthrough. Sure enough, after I investigated this with several video comparisons, it was proven to be faster by a significant amount of time, close to 9 seconds, plus the extra 5 for skipping Mito. Entering the Deku Tree, I have to obtain another Deku Stick and Deku Nuts. I kill the Deku Babas that contain these items with the Infinite Sword Glitch, or ISG. ISG is done by performing a crouch stab by pressing R plus B, or in this case, R plus C right, then cancelling the animation on the last frame, thus keeping the swinging hitbox active. Crouch stab's damage value uses the value of Link's last attack performed in that particular scene. If Link has not performed an attack yet, it defaults to 1 Kokiri sword type damage, even as adult Link with the Bigoron sword. On my way up the tree, I use ISG again, this time for its hovering ability. If I shield damage with ISG active, Link will stick in midair, and I can perform ground actions from the air, such as side hopping or backflipping. In this case, I use a sideways roll to make Link face 90 degrees away from his standing position, allowing me to side hop backwards, which perfectly breaks the web. Upon entering Basement 1, the second web fails to load and I can pass through it. I use a setup here to manipulate my camera and position to load the 2-3-1 scrubs in the proper order so that they shoot me at the right time. I get close to the final scrub so that when he begins hopping away, he doesn't have to hop too long until he's off camera and the game signals it's okay for the cutscene to end. With that out of the way, I enter Goma's lair. Before the fight even starts, I perform a Deku Stick jump slash which does 4 damage. This is so when I later attack Goma with ISG, it will kill her in 3 hits. The Goma fight is complex, because it involves luring Goma to the door perfectly, so that when my hover fails to stick in the air, Link gets pushed just barely through the stone slab that closes. From here, I need to wait and lure Goma closer, stun her, and then kill her with my active hitbox. With the position being sensitive and the ISG, backflip timing, and third roll timing all being frame perfect, this is no easy task. Also of note, Goma can sometimes stop in this fight randomly while I'm luring her, wasting time. In this run, she was nice though. With Goma dead, the insanity is really about to start. From Goma's room, I can perform the legendary Wrong Warp. This is the glitch that took over 13 years to discover, and it still astounds me that it's even possible. I need to exit the room and re-enter it so that when it reloads, the stone slab isn't blocking my way anymore. This is important because I need a clear path to the door. I drop the bugs and re-catch them, so that the bottle turns blue in Link's hand. This will let me do a glitch called Ocarina Items, in which I play a fake ocarina using my Deku Stick. I perform ocarina items on the same frame that I touch the blue warp, which allows me to regain control of Link while the warp tries to carry Link away. During this, an invisible timer in the game is ticking up each frame to 101, at which point it will add the cutscene offset to the next area to load. If I open the door in this exact frame, voila! The game loads the Deku Tree Basement on the same frame that it adds this cutscene offset. As Deku Tree Basement has no cutscene, the game ends up transporting me to Ganon's Tower Collapse interior instead of the Kokiri Emerald cutscene. This bypasses the Ganondorf fight and allows Child Link access to the endgame. At this point in the run, I had to calm myself down because it was the fastest I had ever been up to this point. However, I knew the run could easily end here because of the upcoming Void Warp. The Void Warp is one of the most insane things I've ever seen in a video game. The Collapse exterior has some special code that detects how far Link falls, and will then void him if he falls too far. This is to prevent players from jumping off and getting stuck below. It turns out if Link touches a loading zone on the same frame that the game tries to void out, it uses the wrong map and coordinates when loading the new scene. It is possible to achieve this by rolling into a randomly generated rock with precise timing to gain full speed, and with this speed combined with a very precise angle, I can clip through a corner and fall the exact distance to trigger a Void Warp. Here it is. That sequence right there is probably the most clutch thing I've ever done in a video game. I end up out of bounds on the interior of the collapse, allowing me to jump slash into an unloaded room that contains a loading zone which takes me to the end of the tower collapse sequence, saving 2 minutes. At this point I shouted expletives and it felt like my entire body was shaking. The final hallway is actually very tense, because if I move incorrectly, I might touch a burning rock on the ground, which would not only burn my shield, but also crash the game. Being perfectly in front of Zelda when she opens the door makes her push Link into the loading zone after she opens it, saving more time. Icing on the cake at this point. During this cutscene, I knew I was on pace for an insane run. I had actually accomplished most of the difficult things. All that was left was the Ganon fight. The Ganon fight does require 2 ISGs, and I also like to go for a quick draw jump slash on the second phase, which is also tricky, so there was still the horrible thought that I could squander this run at the very end. I spent most of the time before the Ganon fight just practicing the infinite sword glitch input on the controller over and over, and trying to relax and have pure focus. According to my timer, I had done over 1,200 speedrun attempts, most failing before the halfway point. It could easily be another 1,200 before I got an opportunity like this. I was determined to not choke at the end and to clutch it out. I think it can be easy to lose focus during these longer breaks from gameplay, especially in a tense situation like this one. I was also live streaming this run to over 7,000 viewers, and they were going ballistic in the chat. I actually minimized the chat at this point so I wouldn't see it move out of the corner of my eye, which I thought could be a fatal distraction. Upon regaining control, I roll towards the fight trigger. Again, I perform a Deku Stick jump slash to store the damage value for the infinite sword glitch, similar to the strategy used in the Goma fight. Being very nervous, I repeatedly practiced the input during the cutscene. Funnily enough, despite me never obtaining the Master Sword, Ganon knocks it away, and I'm able to equip it later just by picking it up. As the fight starts, I immediately perform ISG and get some quick hits on Ganon's tail, with each hit doing 4 damage, and this first phase only requiring 10 damage to be over. Ganon is quickly disabled in 3 hits. Now I can go grab the Master Sword. At this point, the next thing I have to worry about is the quick draw jump slash, which is a way of jump slashing out of the initial sword pull animation. It requires good timing to work. I'm able to pull it off and immediately go for my second infinite sword glitch and swap over to the Deku Stick so that I can attack his tail more rapidly. Sometimes Ganon can rotate or the camera can be in a bad position, which can make this part more difficult. It went fine this time though. With the final stun cutscene, I refused to celebrate early, still keeping focus on delivering an accurate final blow. And with this final hit, the run timing stops. 18 minutes and 10 seconds, the new Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time speedrun world record. I actually spent the majority of this year working on this run. This game means so much to me. Back in January, I thought maybe 1845 would be the run I wanted. Another runner, Skater, found a lot of interesting new methods of doing things slightly faster. He discovered a faster forest escape method, the faster basement 1 skip with ISG, and came up with targeting Zelda during the fastest Void Warp method to make it more consistent. Bloob found a feasible Mito-skip method, and Graf pointed out that swordless might be faster. With all these new finds, my new goal was 1820. When I smashed that by 10 seconds, I was pretty overwhelmed. It is the best speedrun I have ever performed, beating out my Castlevania 64 carry record. Some people say this run won't be beaten. I reckon it will someday. Ocarina of Time is a true masterpiece, and you can never be sure what's possible in the future. Some theories to save even more time would be some way of performing Ocarina items on a blue warp without a bottle. This would skip the trip to Kakariko entirely. Another big find would be a way of getting on the top edge of Kokiri Forest as Child Link without explosives. This would result in bypassing the cutscene where the Great Deku Tree talks to Link. If it was somehow possible to favorably manipulate the coordinates for the wrong warp, that would obsolete the Void Warp and the Collapse exterior entirely. If that was ever found, I would be pretty sad though, because the Void Warp is a very interesting and tense sequence in the speedrun, and I feel like it really showcases the beauty of some of the exploits in Ocarina of Time. Though it may have taken years of work, we've really uncovered so many secrets in this wonderful game. I hope by releasing this video, I've shown the wider gaming audience a little taste of what makes The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time such a special game. Even after all these years, we're still playing it. If you're interested in seeing the current speedrun records for Ocarina of Time or other Zelda games, please check out www.zeldaspeedruns.com. Special thanks to Bluebiblah for a lot of support in doing serious analysis to figure out Mitoskip setups, 231 setups, escape backup strats, and more. Thanks Skater for grinding out optimized runs on Wii Virtual Console and figuring out a significant amount of route improvements, including the Zelda target method for the Instaclip Void Warp, which I had previously deemed infeasible. Thanks Pokey for his original 1 hour 16 minute SDA speedrun that inspired countless people to pick up the game. Thanks ZFG for his classic speedrun attempts back in the day and his continued love of speedrunning Ocarina of Time after all these years. Thanks to the Ocarina of Time hacking community for the internal entrance list, and MZX Rules for his wrong warp research. Thanks Petrie911 for creating some amazing things with Ocarina of Time hacking. Thanks Mr. Gruns for finding a lot of cool things in the N64 Zeldas, and making amazing entertaining tool-assisted speedruns. Thanks Cafty for his obscene Ocarina of Time challenges that are always ahead of their time. Thanks Poodleskirt for the bomb drop analysis and for being an entertaining guy. Thanks Kazooie for being the first person to really break through and come up with significant Ocarina of Time finds. Truly inspiring work. Thanks Acrite for being a true badass and proving why Ocarina of Time is one of the best games ever made, with amazing discoveries and crazy theories. Thanks Christian for turning Ocarina of Time upside down on February 2012, with the discovery of Wrong Warp. Thanks Robdog and Nathan is Bored for their clever ideas that led to significant changes in Ocarina of Time routing. Thanks Sockfolder for the MHS memory addresses, showing that a human is capable of figuring out the deepest and most complex things in a video game. Thanks Swordless for being a pioneer of N64 tasking, and also the stroke of brilliance that is Navidive. Thanks Runner Guy for keeping Ocarina of Time fun after all these years, and for winning the Awesome Games Done Quick 2011 Any% race. Thanks Alec Kermit for introducing the Chinese version to the Ocarina of Time speedrun community, and for racing with me in the AGDQ 2011 Any% race. Thanks Giano for spending months making an Ocarina of Time hack with me, figuring out a lot of how the game works internally, and being one of the first people to create and practice setups for all these difficult glitches. Thanks Gombil and the Bingo crew for working hard to keep Ocarina of Time Bingo one of the best and most interesting Ocarina of Time experiences. Thanks Mijitsu aka for the ridiculous trick bounties, and SSBM Pro HRC for winning $200 for the Ganon's Castle early. Hilarious stuff. Thanks Maltov for tirelessly routing Ocarina of Time, for Honey Dungeons, and for some pretty hilarious stream highlights. Thanks SVA for being a 3D Zelda god and being one of the most creative Ocarina of Time players of all time. Thanks Chain for inspiring us all to improve our 231 scrubs. Thanks Pydoix for really trying to push Ocarina of Time and promoting the attitude that we can always improve our runs. Thanks the Macaron for fighting with Pydoix to push Any% lower. Thanks Okiyama for showing how to jump over a fence without Goron Mask or damage boosting, or whatever. Thanks Glitches and Stuff for years of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask research, figuring out countless amazing things. Thanks Max for creating the ZSR leaderboards, maintaining the site, and being a really legit guy. Thanks Graviton for the epiphany that skipping the Kokiri sword could be faster with the new jump/less Mitoskip. Spider Waffle is rolling in his grave now. Thanks Sendamos for making amazing vlogs. Thanks to my girlfriend Adrian for continuous support during this relentless grind. Thanks to the Stunfest staff for flying me to France to play Ocarina of Time. We'll never forget it. Thanks Cools, GCTK, and all future Ocarina of Time runners for keeping the game alive over 15 years later. Thanks Nintendo for creating such an epic game. And thank you for watching.